Hello and welcome. You are listening to Pint Size Therapy, where we explore all things related to mental health healing, personal growth and development, emotional wellness, and the human experience in pint-sized bites. I am your host, Dr. Aletha Clark, a licensed psychotherapist, certified hypnotherapist, and master addiction counselor, and I am happy to have you here with me today as you embark on your mental wellness journey. While I appreciate you tuning in, don't forget this podcast is informational only and is not a substitute for seeking out your own mental health counseling with a licensed professional. So join me as we jump into today's episode. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me today. The month of September is National Recovery Month. It's a time to celebrate the strength, resilience, and hope that lives inside of recovery. Whether you're listening as someone walking your own recovery path, supporting a loved one, or simply wanting to learn more, this space is for you. The theme of Recovery Month this year is Recovery is Real, restoring every aspect of life. And in today's episode, we're going to dive into what that really means. We'll explore some of the myths versus the truths about addiction and recovery. We'll talk about the importance of self-compassion and reflect on how recovery isn't just about stopping a substance, it's about redefining your life and identity. So let's get started. So for a long time, addiction has been surrounded by stigma. People have been told that once you've struggled, your life is over, or that you'll always be broken. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is recovery happens every day, in millions of lives, across every background, age, and story. One of the most important messages of Recovery Month is simply put, recovery is possible. But what do we actually mean when we say recovery? A lot of times people think recovery just means not using drugs or alcohol anymore. And yes, abstaining from substances is often part of the journey, but recovery is about so much more than that. Recovery is about restoring the whole person and becoming a better version of yourself. And when I say the whole person, I mean every area of life that substance use may have touched. This can include things such as your physical health, right? Healing the body, restoring your sleep, energy, and balance. What about your emotional health? Learning to cope with stress, sadness, anger, fear, or even any other emotional struggles in healthier ways. And what about your mental health? Addressing the anxiety, depression, trauma, or other challenges that may have been hidden beneath the substance use, or the things that you tried to hide under the substance use. It can include your spiritual health, reconnecting with your faith or religion, or even just simply from a spiritual perspective, finding your sense of purpose, your connection, and your meaning again. It helps in areas of relationships, repairing your trust, setting boundaries, building supportive connections again, and even your identity and purpose. When you're trying to figure out, so who am I now? Who do I want to become? Recovery means building a life where you don't just stop using substances. You actually flourish without substance use by forming meaningful relationships, pursuing your passions, and finding your purpose each day. It means finding happiness again, learning new ways to cope, and building routines and relationships that support your growth. So let's reflect for a second. If you're listening and you're in recovery yourself, or even supporting someone in recovery, take a moment and think about this. When you hear the word recovery, what does that mean to you? Could it be freedom, peace of mind, healing? Maybe it's the ability to be fully present with your children or your loved ones, or to pursue a career you once thought wasn't possible. The truth is, recovery looks different for every single person. For some, it involves therapy and medical support. For others, it can include peer groups, lifestyle changes, creative outlets, art, music. There's no single path that's right. What matters most is that the path you're on is helping you become the healthiest version of yourself. And recovery is about a progress. It's not perfection. It's about those small steps that add up over time. And it's about remembering that you are more than your past. You are the whole person that you are becoming. So first, let's kind of clear up the air on, a few common myths. So one of the common myths is that recovery means you'll never struggle again. Well, that can't be further from the truth. Recovery is a process. It's not a straight line. It's not linear. And it's not easy. There will be struggles. There will be setbacks. But those do not erase the progress that you actually have made. Another myth is that people have to hit rock bottom to start recovery. But the truth is that recovery can begin at any point. This may be true for some, but not for everyone. You don't need to lose everything to choose healing. Myth 3 is that recovery only happens through one program or one method. But in reality, there are many pathways to recovery. What works for one person may not work for another, and that's okay. Furthermore, the end goal of recovery may look vastly different from person to person. How about the myth of recovery is just about quitting substances? The truth about recovery is that it's about restoring every aspect of life. It's about restoring your health and your relationships, your purpose and your hope. It goes beyond just quitting substances. And many of us heard that if someone relapses, they've failed. But the truth is that relapse can be part of the journey. It's not about failure, but about learning, adjusting, and continuing forward. I want you to hear this clearly. Your worth is not defined by your setbacks. For each step, even the difficult ones, this can be part of your growth. So, before we talk about how to practice self-compassion, which is so important when we're on the recovery journey, I want to pause and ask, why is self-compassion so necessary in recovery? And the answer is because recovery is often shadowed by stigma and shame, both from the outside world and from within ourselves. On the outside, people in recovery may still encounter harmful stereotypes, being judged as weak, irresponsible, or broken. These messages can come from society, the media, your workplaces, even from your own family or friends who don't understand substance use as a health condition. This external stigma can make someone feel isolated or unworthy, even as they're working incredibly hard to change their lives. And then there's the internal stigma, the shame we carry inside. Many people in recovery describe a relentless inner voice that says, "You've messed up too badly. You don't deserve a second chance. You'll never be enough." The inner critic can be brutal, constantly reminding you of past mistakes instead of recognizing the courage it takes to heal or the progress and steps that you have made. The problem is that stigma and shame, whether from others or from ourselves, don't create change. In fact, they often pull us backward. Shame fuels secrecy, avoidance, and self-punishment, and none of those things support long-term healing. Healing doesn't happen through shame. Healing happens through compassion. And this is why self-compassion is not optional in recovery. It's essential. It's the antidote to stigma. It's what allows you to quiet that harsh inner voice and replace it with one that says, "I am human. I am healing. I am worthy of growth and change." When we practice self-compassion, we don't erase responsibility for the past, but we do shift the focus toward possibility, healing, and the future. So let's take a moment. I'd like you to ask yourself, where does shame show up most loudly for you? Through the words of others or through my own self-talk? And what might change if I choose compassion instead of criticism? You know, if you were supporting a loved one in recovery, you'd likely encourage them. You'd remind them of their strength and offer them peace. What if you actually extended that same kindness to yourself? What's one compassionate thing you can say to yourself today about your journey? Because sometimes the smallest acts of kindness towards yourself can open the biggest door to recovery and to change. I'd like to invite you into a short exercise that you can do right now. If you're in a safe space, I want you to take a moment to pause with me. I want you to practice some self-compassion. I want you to start by taking a slow, deep breath. Deep breathe in and let it out gently. And now place your hand over your heart. I want you to feel the weight of your hand, reminding you that you are here, present, and alive in this moment. As you breathe, I want you to think about one shame-based thought that tends to come up for you in your recovery. Maybe it sounds like, I'm not good enough, or I'll never change, or I've hurt too many people. Just notice that thought without judgment. And now let's maybe gently replace it. Maybe say to yourself, I am human. I'm allowed to grow. My past does not erase my future. I am worthy of compassion, especially from myself. I want you to take another deep breath and let those words sink in. And now let's add one more layer. Think about how you would comfort a close friend who is struggling with shame. What would you say to them? Maybe you would say, "You're doing the best you can," or "I see how hard you're working," or simply, "I believe in you." And now, offer those same words to yourself. Whisper them if you'd like, but feel how different it is to speak with kindness instead of criticism. This is self-compassion in action. And the more you practice it, the more it becomes a new inner voice, one that supports your recovery instead of tearing it down. One of the most powerful parts of recovery is not just leaving substances behind, but reconnecting with yourself, with the person you are and the person you're becoming. Because during active addiction, many people describe feeling like they lost themselves. They lost sight of their values, their dreams, their sense of purpose. Maybe even their sense of identity got wrapped up in the substance. When to use, how to get it, how to hide it, how to manage the consequences. Life started to revolve around survival, but not self-discovery. It revolved around chasing this substance. And when that happens, it's easy to forget. Who am I really? What do I even enjoy? And what actually matters to me? Many people say I don't even know who I am without substances. And that's a real and valid fear. But recovery gives you space to rediscover your identity. Recovery gives you the chance to answer those questions again. It's not just about removing something negative from your life. It's about building something positive and deeply meaningful. In recovery, you get to ask yourself, what values do I want to live by now? What brings me joy? Who do I want to show up as in my relationships? What dreams have I put on hold that I might want to pursue again? For some, that might mean reconnecting with family. For others, it's discovering new hobbies or finally exploring talents and passions you didn't have space for before. For some, it might mean going back to school, building a career, or deepening spirituality. This stage of recovery is really about moving from "I'm not using anymore" to "I'm building a life worth protecting." So let's think for a moment. When I imagine myself 1 year from now, who do I hope I'll be? Not just what I'm doing, but who will I be becoming? Recovery isn't about going back to who you were before substances. It's about moving forward into a version of yourself that feels more whole, more grounded, and more aligned with what matters most to you. Recovery is about building a life that feels worth protecting. And that's one of the most powerful motivators to keep going. So today we've explored what recovery really means. We've talked about how recovery is possible, how it's more than just abstaining for substances, and how it's about restoring the whole person, your body, your mind, your emotions, your relationships, and your sense of purpose. We've also talked about breaking free from myths and stigma, both external and internal. We looked at the role of self-compassion, why it matters, and how it feels, how it helps to push back against shame. And we reflected on what it means to rediscover our identity, to reconnect with yourself, and to begin shaping the person you're becoming in recovery. And that brings us right back to this year's theme for Recovery Month. Recovery is real, restoring every aspect of life. When you hear that phrase, think about it this way. Recovery isn't just about removing substances from your life. It's about restoring life itself. It's about reclaiming your health, your peace of mind, your relationships, your dreams. It's about rebuilding from the inside out. So whether you're in your first days of recovery or many years in, I want you to pause and notice. Which aspect of life is being restored right now? Maybe it's your confidence. Maybe it's trust with your family. Maybe it's your physical strength or your creativity. Whatever it is, that's recovery in action. And as you move forward from today's episode, I want you to kind of take a final reflection and ask yourself, what part of my life am I currently restoring? And what's the next part I'd like to rebuild? What part of my recovery story am I most proud of right now? It doesn't have to be something huge. It could be a week, a day, or even an hour of choosing life. Recovery is real, and so is the possibility of becoming whole again, step by step and day by day. I thank you for spending this time with me today. Recovery Month is about lifting up stories like yours, honoring progress, and reminding the world that healing is real. If you'd like to go deeper with what we covered today, I've created some companion worksheets for this series. You'll find worksheets like Mapping My Journey and Rewriting My Story. These are some tools to help you reflect on your path and put today's episode into practice. Then you'll find these worksheets and all other resources on my website at pintsizedtherapy.com. And if you found today's episode meaningful, I'd love it if you share it with someone who might need encouragement this month. Together, we can break stigma and actually celebrate recovery. Until next time, remember, recovery is real, and so is your strength. As always, thank you for joining me today on Pint-Sized Therapy. If you found this conversation meaningful, I invite you to leave me a comment, like, subscribe, and share with your family and friends. Come visit my website at pintsizedtherapy.com and my Etsy shop at pintsizedtherapy.etsy.com, where you will find resources to accompany our various discussions and encourage you to continue your wellness journey. Once again, I am Dr. Aletha Clark. Until next time, remember to protect your peace and take care of your mental health.